thank you everybody for taking time to be with us this morning. My name is Kyle Patterson and I am from Bryson Insurance Brokers. We are a insurance broker in Ontario, but we serve clients from across Canada. And we really focus on offering a boutique experience, which is really designing a personalized, unique experience with high intelligence and high product selection, and just really high quality solutions. But we demonstrate this here. And so we listen to our clients. They bring up different topics, different concerns. And one of the big topics that have come up over recent months is leadership burnout. And so we had the fortune to meet Kate, and Kate focuses all on being a powerhouse, resilience, and has a lot of different conversations and strategies to prevent that leadership burnout. So we wanted to invite her here to talk here with us. Just a bit, Kate, about you before I launch into this is Kate is a public speaker, a trainer, and a performance coach. Some of the things I learned about Kate too, just in our prelude conversations, is that she doesn't just do big public speaking events, and she doesn't just do individual performance coaching, although she's even helped me in our conversations. She also works with different teams and organizations. So I've heard that she actually will work with a management team or leadership team or different teams inside of an organization. And what I would say is this conversation we're going to have today is going to be pretty dynamic and free-flowing and agile. We actually hope that you help us navigate the conversation. And that's what I would say is each individual company or team are probably having similar experiences and challenges, but each person's individual experience is different. And so as much as this might be a general conversation we're having today, I wouldn't say this is a starting point, not the whole enchilada, you could say. And so Kate, as you can see here in the background, is a published author. And if you ever even considered writing your own book, you could imagine the resilience required to get through that process. And she trained in the world of Jack Canfield. So if you know Jack Canfield, that is part of her foundation. But I really want to hand the floor over to Kate. So Kate, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Cal. So great to be here. I'm so happy people have joined us. Really thrilled about this. I'm excited to play with you because it's all about play for me. I don't know about you, but my knickers can get in a knot pretty quick. It's so easy to stay up here. Kyle, I don't know about you, but I can stay in my head, and it's a dangerous neighborhood if I stay there too long. And so it's really important that I take time to play. So I want this to, you and I have already made a great connection, so I know they're in for a treat. So it's going to be very organic, and I like that. I like that idea. So I know that everybody has been, you've sent out my 4 rooms, the handout. So we're gonna invite you to follow along. Feel free to type away in there, each of the rooms, because it really is a big part. It's the core of the work that I do, most definitely.
Beautiful, and thank you. And just to kick us off, I mean, this is in the realm of resilience, but it's really the other side of it is leadership burnout, right? Like it's in the world of preventing that, or just completely, building yourself up. But what is, how would you describe resiliency, and like, what is resilience? What is it to be resilient?
Well, it's a good question. So to be resilient, and by the way, we have not practiced any of this, which I love. I love to be this authentic. So resilience to me is being able to, we're still going to have that inner critic. We're still going to have that chatter inside of our heads. The difference is now we now have strategies on how do I stop that? How do I stop that inner chatter and sort of reframe it so that it serves me well? So resiliency is kind of that bouncing back, that springboard back. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to feel stress, because we know that stress is healthy. It's how I choose to react to it. Right now, however, we have been bombarded at rapid speed. So resiliency is really being able to, it's using that courage, to be able to step into whatever we need to step into. Obviously, my book and my work is about owning our power as leaders. And so a lot of that is being able to have those strategies to have that courageous conversation with people. But ultimately, resiliency, quite frankly, is someone who really likes themselves and loves themselves. I know that doesn't sound like something you'd normally hear at a leadership presentation or a conversation, but at the core of it, if I ain't loving me, if I'm not taking care of me, then guess what? I'm going to become shelled out and burned out. And so resiliency is really being able to navigate the storm. It isn't to walk away from the storm. It's how do I navigate the storm and do it in such a way that I don't become the sacrificial lamb. The dilemma for a lot of us is that as leaders, you know, having been an executive director myself, is that we sometimes check ourselves outside of the office, which is now oftentimes are in our own homes, but we check ourselves out and we become the sacrifice. And today, it's very clear by the organizations that I'm working with that doesn't work. We need to make some serious changes. The burnout is real. People are in some serious trouble. So resiliency is about using consistent strategies that are really going to be able to help us to basically bounce back with whatever we're navigating.
Yeah, you said a couple of really interesting things in there. One, that, you know, one of the things that I see happening that leads to the burnout is the commitment of leaders and people in organizations to continue to want to serve and deliver the same experience to, you know, coworkers or staff they manage or lead, or to clients as well. And there's just so many different and unique competing challenges to having that kind of show up. So like, I know people feel like they're just not delivering it the same way and with the same consistency. And so I really want to dive into that today, is that sense of maybe guilt that only continues to compound it. But one of the other things I really hear inside of the developing of strategies and learning in that capacity is resiliency is not like learning a new tactic or a new way, like, you know, oh, I got to get through my email, so I'm going to turn off notifications. Like, that's a good tactic to increase the sort of efficiency and give you a bit of calm in the day. But I really see like resilience being more of a muscle that has to be strengthened over time with different strategies. And different tools, kind of just like going to a gym, but hiring an instructor so you actually know which muscles or which workout you specifically need to get stronger. So just looking at it, and I know I kind of added two different elements there, but speaking right now to the people who maybe have children still at home or maybe at school and don't know if they'll be at school tomorrow or back home, dealing with having, you know, 30 or 40 or 50 staff, or maybe 10 people they're accountable to, trying to communicate over technology, having, you know, Zoom meetings or Teams meetings where cameras are off, like all of these different new things, leading to people just feeling like overwhelmed, and then sort of having a burnout, but they don't even know if it's burnout or not. They're just, this is what their life looks like now. So can you just give sort of idea of like, where does that, like, how would you start seeing if you, we'll talk about staff and other people in a sec, but how would you start knowing in your own self if you were starting to experience like that burnout?
Okay, good question. So first of all, exhaustion, completely depletion, have no energy, lack of focus. Oftentimes there's sleep issues, whether it's disrupted sleep or just can't fall asleep. Usually there's something happening in the sleep. Certainly there's some physical ailments, because again, our body's always there to support us, Kyle. So, you know, if I'm having constant headaches, if I'm having stomach issues, bowel issues, whatever, again, the body's there to protect us from what's happening out here. So, you know, certainly it can be some of those things that have manifested in the physical body. So for some people, it's apathy. Sometimes it becomes resentment. Like, seriously, you want me to do that? So it becomes almost that sense of the joy has been sucked out of them. And so that typically, I know that many years ago, hence why I do the work that I do many, many years ago in the 90s, which it wasn't very common that you talked about stress leaves. I needed to take a stress leave. I was burnout. I literally was in every, you know, doing way too many things. When I looked back, when I literally stepped off that stress treadmill of mine, because it was, I realized that I allowed all of what I did to define me, you see? And so I was very connected to the more successful I was, the more that I deposited and helped other people, then somehow that made, you know, I was able to come to the plate and it really defined who Kate was, until I took that leave of absence. And during that leave, it was very profound for me to realize, they don't define me, I define me. And then I had to get realistic about my expectations of myself. And sometimes it's a system thing too, Kyle. I mean, my background is as a family and children's counselor. So, for those 15 years, we're always looking through the lens of a systemic approach. So I'm doing the same really when it comes to that of in an organization. So it's a systemic thing. So if the chief up here is completely just rapid fire expecting things from their team, basically they're projecting their own expectations of self onto them. They're in for a roller coaster ride. And so, being a type A personality and all of that stuff myself, I have still, even to this day, I still have team members that kind of go, and you asked me to do that? Kind of like, yeah, I guess I did kind of micromanage you on that. Oops, sorry about that. So I think that it's really important that we're continuously, Kyle, doing the reflection on ourselves as to, if I'm exhausted, if my mood swings are absolutely off the chart, there's some flags here. There's some serious flags here that I need to take a look at. I call it the 10-second pause. I need to make sure that, when I call it staticky, if I'm feeling staticky or I'm just feeling not grounded, those are some flags. Those are some flags that, okay, I've got to take a step back and take a breath in and kind of look at it. But burnout right now, to say that a leader has not experienced burnout during this marathon, I don't know. Rock on. I think that's great if you have dodged that bullet. My experience with the leaders that I'm working with is that it is very, very common that there has been definitely some serious elements of that burnout right now.
Yeah, and what I hear too is the bigger consequence of not recognizing it and putting something in place is that potential bigger issue, which is a longer leave of absence. Because I could totally get, I mean, my own personal experience of always having more to do, that how could I ever go in and slow down or take care of myself or manage this burnout potential when all I'm thinking in my future is more. And so, but I get that if you don't take care of it, then what you're setting yourself up for potentially is a much bigger negative impact that's going to have a much longer rippling effect through the organization, through your own day, through your family and personal life too. So if somebody's starting to experience or already sort of going on that sort of a bit of a roller coaster of emotion, what should they do first, or what strategies do you start looking for here to help someone build that resiliency muscle a little bit?
Well, you know what? I'm wondering if maybe we could use the 4 rooms framework and we could jump into there, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, 100%. It's a perfect.
So what I'm going to recommend is people then to write in. Number 1 is your mentally fit room. So let me tell you a little bit of the story behind the 4 rooms. So many years ago, an Indigenous friend of mine said, Kate, in our tribe, we believe very strongly that in order for us to have balance, yes, that was a word back then. I know it's kind of a hot topic. People don't like the word balance because it's non-existent, but if we want to call it work-life blend, whatever that might be, in order for us to step into our purpose, in order for us to find our voice and speak our truth and own our power, what we believe in is entering each of these 4 rooms every day. And so my Pilates instructing background, we talk a lot about engage your core, engage your powerhouse, and in the abdominal area, that's where everything comes from. So I decided I was going to kind of, shift it a little bit to your mentally fit room. So number 1 is your mentally fit room. Number 2 is your emotionally fit room. And the 3rd room is your physically fit room. And then the 4th is your spiritually fit room. I was very intentional in how I actually put those in those order as well. So you see, it starts in our head. That's where it all starts. So, I was sharing with you quite openly that I didn't sleep so great last night. I've got, like everybody else, we're all running on that treadmill, right? So my the hamster wheel was going. In fact, it had several generations of hamsters on the wheel. And so it's like, okay, use the stuff that you share with other people. So first and foremost, if you have that awareness that you're off, this is a time more than ever. We need to get more humble as leaders. That's my belief, and that's just really my own personal belief. It was just unbelievable how many sleeps it took me to finally go to my doctor and say, I need a stress leave. I'm not here to advocate that you should all take stress leaves, by the way. What I'm trying to say is that number 1 is, I call it the 3 A's, and that is I have to have awareness. Awareness that I'm off, something's not quite right. The second one is, okay, acceptance. I have to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. And so if there's some things that are going south, whether it's my health, whether it's losing my sense of motivation, or whether it's, lack of self-care or compassion, then I need to remember that, if I knew better, I would have done better. So here we are, we have this awareness that I need to make some changes. And the third A, of course, is action. So what am I going to do differently to get a different result, right? So number one is I have to acknowledge. See, I believe it starts with the leader and it ends with the leader. So I'd also encourage that you write that in that first room, is that we are 100% responsible. I am 100% responsibility for my happiness, for my mental health, for my well-being. So what does that mean? My organization may not support that. The system may not support that. It may continuously be downloading and expecting more and more and more from me. The reality is, unless I'm willing to give a little bit of pushback on certain things, then the reality is I'm going to keep going down that rabbit hole. So I know that that is a reality for a lot of leaders right now. It's like more is expected of them. And from the get-go, it wasn't realistic to begin with. So number one is be realistic of our expectations of ourselves. I talk about in my book about a mind map. I'm really big on this, Kyle, that, and people have their own systems. And so this is just one more to add to your buffet table. But I do a Monday morning mind map. Each morning, I literally put it on one page. Yes, I actually write it in. So some of those of you that are techie, I know you can do a mind map online. But what it does is it allows you to see in one sheet what exactly. So I'm putting on there my business. I'm putting there each of my team members and what I need to delegate to them. I'm putting on personal. I may put some other projects, specific projects, and then I have the tasks underneath them. So right away, I'm getting a snapshot. Am I even being realistic of what I'm expecting from myself? Because right now, we're navigating an unprecedented time in history. So if I know that I'm worried about my mom, or something's happened health-wise with somebody, or myself, or whatever the case may be, I need to get really crystal clear coming out of that gate, looking at, is this realistic? And then I got to get the big D out. And what does that mean? I've got to look at, what do I need to delete for this week? You know what? It's really not important. I love that my brother says the number one priority is your number one priority. So that gives you that snapshot of what is even realistic for you to do from the get-go. The other D is, of course, delegation. What do I need to delegate here? What my experience has been working in the leadership coaching world is that, we go into autopilot. It's just normal. We do that, right? Particularly when we're afraid, Kyle. And I don't know who hasn't experienced some form of fear or anxiety during this marathon. And so, what we need to do is take a look at, really, what is it that is within my reach? And am I trying to control things? And that's been a common theme that I'm hearing from the leaders themselves or their teams. Oh, wow, they're micromanaging me. Like every time I got to check in, and every time I'm on the screen, and I don't know, I think we're really shooting ourselves in the foot. This is a time for us to be compassionate, be flexible, and the word, big letters, is trust. If people are delivering, and they're getting out what it is, like the organization that I'm working with, that really are those thought leaders that are saying, I got to trust my people. They've hired me. I've hired them because of their skill set and their talent. But this business of hearing some organizations where people are literally having to show every minute of every day when they put on that screen, or they have to stare into the screen for the full, 2 hours meetings or 1 hour meeting, like, talk about put a fork in your eye. Like, I think we have to get really flexible in how we approach things. We have been pushed into literally a storm that we've never experienced. And so we have to keep taking that 10-second pause to say, okay, where do we need to be more flexible? Where do I need to be more compassionate? Where do I need to be able to show up and really be present for the people? And I think there's a lot of leaders, truthfully, Kyle, that are doing an awesome job. I really believe that. What I do is simply encourage them to do more. So I want to be mindful of the time. Again, it's tough because I'm just giving you little teasers from the book. There's so many things there that I actually do. The big thing is worthy of writing down is how you start your day shapes your day. So if we jump out of bed, and I realize that some people that are on here, they have little people. And so, Kate, you're wanting me to get up 15 minutes earlier? Are you crazy? I guarantee if you were to give it a 7-day run, it will be a game changer for you. So I call it actually the power of 4 morning routine. And so what does that mean? So you start off by, first of all, taking just that 5 minutes. It might be of mindfulness, it might be breath work. We know that right now mindfulness is hot. It's hot. People need to take a look at meditation in a way that they never have before. Because you see, what happens is when I'm taking that moment to ground myself, what it's doing is it's allowing me to let go. You see, the simplest act of self-compassion is learning how to let go. But as a society, we don't do that very well, right? Our knickers are in a knot. We're jumping from one thing to the next. The taskmaster is completely all over us about next, next, next. So the first thing is definitely taking that moment and doing that breath work, that mindful meditation. The second thing I talk about is what we need to do is move our body. We are sitting way too long. We need to get up and stretch. You know, we're in an organization where we go to the water cooler, we go to the lunchroom, you know, we do that kind of stuff whereby we are able to physically get away from where we are. But the reality is we're not doing it enough, right? There's no boundary. You know, like I've got the kids coming in and all this kind of stuff happening. And it's like, you know, how do I sort of set those boundaries in place? So then within that, moving your body, whether it's stretching, whether it's you go for a walk. I know you do that, Kyle, you walk in the morning, good for you. I'm a fan of doing it in the morning because then I know for sure it's gotten done, because I have great intentions to do it later. It doesn't always happen. Or I will secure the time at the gym and I don't want to have to cancel it. So then I make sure my day goes the way it needs to. While we're moving our body, I think it's important that we actually celebrate our successes. This is a big thing that we're missing because we're so busy on that stress treadmill. We just want to check everything off. But here's the deal. It's never going to get done. I don't mean to disappoint anybody, but it's an illusion to think that we're going to get it done. It's always, there's going to be more and more and more. It's how I choose to navigate it and manage it that's going to have the greatest impact. So the third thing is the gratitude attitude. We've heard this. Thank you to Oprah. She brought that out into the world. I think it's more than gratitude. I think in the sense what we need to do is we need to be depositing into our people. And I first start at home, right? First start at home. We've heard this about, you know, when people are dying, they don't say, gee, I really wished I'd put in more hours at work. It's, you know, the people that are around our bed when we're dying is not the people from our office. I don't think. It'll likely be, you know, the people that are within our inner circle, our family. And so it's, you know, am I making a point of saying, you know, my brother did, you know, was really sweet the other night, said, I'm just so lucky to have you. And we use humor a lot. And I was going to say, yeah, you're so right. And then I came back and said, oh, thank you. What a great way to end my day. That's beautiful. And so the fourth thing, of course, is the intention. We need to get clear about how do I want to show up for today? You know, how am I going to show up for this meeting? And so we have a tendency where I'm running from one meeting to the next. I'm not getting a chance to really take a step back and go, how do I want to show up for this person? How do I want to show up for these people? How do I bring my best self forward? See, if we're not taking that 10-second pause, you know, it's creating a whole snowball effect. Sorry, I should probably not use snowball because we really do want the snow to go away. But if you understand what I'm saying. So that really is giving a small glimpse into your mentally fit room. Right now, our inner critics are alive and well. For anybody who's got perfectionism going on, has got that inner, you know, that judge that's going on. I don't have enough time to be transparent to kind of delve deep into it. But, you know, doing some of the things that I'm sharing right now about depositing into your well-being, it's not negotiable. It's not negotiable. I say this in my book, you know, the heart doesn't attack you. What a really weird phrase. You know, our heart does not attack us. So it's what we do to the heart, whether it's I'm working ridiculous hours, whether it's I'm maybe not taking care of myself with my lifestyle, maybe I'm pushing myself too hard, maybe I'm not moving my body enough. But again, what we need to do now is pay attention to the feedback in our lives. That's a big deal right now. And I'm a believer during this reset that we're experiencing. I don't know about anybody on this call, but it's like whatever I got to look at is on the drive-in theater screen. So if I'm judging myself harshly, if I'm second guessing myself, if my confidence has been hit, whoa, it's right there. So it's time for us to feel it and then let it go, which brings me into the second room, that being your emotionally fit room. You see, it's such a big deal that if I'm not checking in with responsibility, you know what? I didn't show my best self here, and you deserve better. So that's kind of giving you an idea. As far as I love this, that my chiropractor, Dr. Michael Kula, says, what would I choose in this moment if I loved myself? What a game changer, right? What would I choose if I loved myself in this moment, right? And I think it's really, really important that we look at that. You were saying earlier, Kyle, about what do I do if I have some flags or I'm noticing some things in myself. This is where it hangs out, is in the emotionally fit room. We got to get help. There's sometimes this whole, depending on where you came from, I know my family of origin is just like, you suck it up. You suck it up. And, I'm going to be transparent. I've been to therapy. I'll go to therapy again. I've been coached. I'll continue. I always say to people, if your therapist or your coach has never had a coach or never had a therapist, you might want to question that. Why? Because they're working on their own stuff, right? And I think right now we are being triggered more than ever before. And so guess what? I always say to people that whoever the unfinished business back here in our family of origin, guess what? It's going to show up in your team members. It's going to show up in your personal life with friends. So if you've got a brother that was a bully, if you've got a sister that was unavailable, whatever it is, we're going to recreate that in the workplace. Why? Because we spend more hours with our colleagues than we do sometimes our own families. So I think that's a really important thing. I'm a huge, you brought up about the families, Kyle. I think it's really important we have family meetings. That's something that I've said before in some of the other resources that I've published. But it's a really big deal. People need to start talking about, what's a thumb up, thumb up in your day, what's a thumb down in your day, and then talk about the truth of what's going on. I did a 3-hour training session for a team yesterday, and the one woman that was doing a role play with me said, I've done it. I've created monsters with all of them. I'm doing it all. Like, I'm doing everything, and I'm so frustrated and mad at myself. And I said, okay, here's your new word, until now. Your phrase, until now. So I invite people to be mindful of your language, because everything is energy. So your language, I'm stressed, I'm burnout, I'm overtaxed, I'm this, I'm that. We need to be mindful of the fact that that is completely, so again, your brain is there to protect you. It's like a computer. And so if I keep reinforcing this in the stories that I tell, or the negativity that I share with you in a consistent basis, I'm now really keeping that story alive. That's a really important one. But I think for sure asking for help is a big deal. I'm going to take a breath. Is there anything that's in the chat?
There was so much in there. And just because I was looking at your sheet, so it doesn't actually say the names of the 4 rooms. But Kelly was just asking for that. And just before you answer that, I just want to let everybody know, although I'm using Kelly's name here, any comments or questions you have don't show up in the final recording. This is a safe space, just so you are aware. So feel free to ask anything here, and it's completely just contained to this group of people meeting here today. And so just so that people can write this, the title, what is each room?
Yeah, so the first room is your mentally fit room. You can just say my mentally fit room. Room number 2 is my emotionally fit room.
And then we'll get to 3 and 4 in a second.
My physically fit room, and my spiritually fit room. I don't know if you want to put that in the chat for people who maybe they haven't had that second cup of coffee. I don't know about you, but
so, yeah, I think it's good. It's great. I just want to say this too. It's always wonderful to have someone like yourself give the time to be with us. So, whatever you're getting out of today, the link or availability of Kate's book will be in the follow-up email as well. So we'll get to where we get to in this conversation. But you said a lot in that last segment. There's a couple of parts I want to pull out there. One, you mentioned about our life showing up on the big screen, but I would also just say in general, even in this, we're on this meeting here, I see myself. There's an extra level of tiredness that comes from, am I looking at the camera right now instead of at Kate and the chat? And are people liking what I look like? Do I like what I look like right now? All of that internal dialogue is going on all the time. Yes. And it's a lot, right? And so, over time, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have our conversation like this in this way is just to make it more real, fun, sloppy, easy. Like, it's okay if it gets messy. It's okay if we mess up. Like, it's really important to kind of to create that comfort with your coworkers and peers. And, we've had a challenge of maybe having being on camera too much, and so being okay when people aren't on camera. But one of the things we finally brought back was this thing we call the Bryson Bustle, and we're now hosting it once a week. But it's just this opportunity once a week where we all get together, and one of our team members, Rosemary, leads us through this really silly stretch. And in the office when we were there, it was fun because you'd be with your team, you'd all get up and march and punch and walk around and do all this fun stuff. But now we're all doing it on camera. And what's really great about that is, people are just being silly on camera. So I think that helps just sort of lower the bar of how you have to show up, especially internally. Because there's even just the simplicity. It wouldn't work if I left the camera for this meeting. Like, it just wouldn't work for a presentation. But, we have to stay in the lens of the camera all day. But if you were having a normal meeting, you'd get up and walk around. So I've been trying to practice doing that and, ensuring that people still know I'm actively listening and commenting, but not sitting all day. I'd say my sitting has drastically increased since working from home. But the other thing that, I'd love for you to kind of comment on, if you can, is just the vulnerability piece. Like, what is, I guess what's your ideas or feedback about being authentic and vulnerable without kind of going over the line? I don't know where that line is, and that's kind of my question, because I do think being a vulnerable, authentic leader does make a difference, but there's a line somewhere.
It's a really good point you're making. So, the leaders that I'm working with are oftentimes the leaders right now, particularly, they're saying, "Oh gosh, Kate," because then they end up crying. So sorry if anybody's going to hire me soon. That, I tend to have this way with people of unpacking or letting the layers of the onion open. And so what tends to happen is we're used to kind of having this certain persona at work, and so particularly in a leadership role. And right now, that doesn't work. I need to say that really transparently. So I've worked with people that there's been serious deaths because of COVID or cancer or different things that are happening. And so, I've really prompted them and encouraged them to be honest about what's happening. Just today's not a good day. I'm just really trying to get through it, or whatever the case may be. I think that we all kind of know, we obviously, the fine line is they're not my therapist. And so I think that to share with people that vulnerability about, I'm really struggling. So for example, in May, when my sister-in-law passed away from cancer, I talked about that during some of my presentations about, I was number 11, right? And number 11 meant that I couldn't attend. I couldn't support my husband in that funeral. And so that was difficult for me. So I was relating that story, not to go, "Oh, poor Kate." That wasn't where I was coming from. It was to make it so that it was relatable to other people about, what have you missed out on? What have been hits that you've experienced as a result of what's going on? There's an elephant that's filling up the room. It's not just sitting in the corner anymore. That's the beauty right now of this necessary rebirth that we're going through, is that we need to take a look at what didn't work as a leader in our organization, and then also really about how the dialogue we have. I've worked with people that, are being impacted on, we're part of the human race as leaders. And so to assume that, I just got to suck it up all the time and just, put my big girl pants on or my big boy pants on, that's the way I'm supposed to be. It's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for them. Because you see, I can't get close to you as one of your team members if I feel like you've got this, you've got this armor, this suit of armor on. Now, again, if I'm breaking down and I'm crying at every staff meeting or team meeting, that's obviously a flag. But if I show you some emotion because something happened, I mean, I've been brought in because of my counseling background with teams where, there's been a suicide or there's been a death, a heart attack at work. And so I help create rituals and support people because of my background. I've authored some lost CDs and different things in MP3s. So, but for me, it's really about the humanness. That's the part. Do I want to do a do-over or go through the pandemic more? No, absolutely not. But I am an eternal optimist to say, okay, even though some of this stuff sucks, absolutely. What I want to say is, what can we bring now? Can we bring more compassion in some capacity? Can I bring more humanness to my role in a way that people feel a little bit more connected to me? I think it's vital. I think it's vital right now. I think the leaders that are going to be able to get through this in a resilient fashion or come out of that burnout, I think it's because they're allowing themselves to be humble to say, hey, I need help. I need to get some support, whether it's through the EAP program, the Employee Assistance Program, or whether it's hiring a therapist or a coach, whatever it is. Like, this is where I'm excited right now, Kyle, is organizations aren't saying to me, okay, Kate, I want you to parachute in and just give us a half day or an hour, like just use that magic wand and make it all better for us. And I'm so grateful that they're taking the buffet of services and saying, I want you to work one-on-one with my leaders. I want you to help them with their own breakthroughs. So A, I keep them, retention. And two, I want to prevent burnout, or if they're there, give them strategies to deal with it. And then I'd like you to come in and do a leadership team and then the larger team. So what's happening now is there's this awareness that our people are starting to, we're seeing them wear out. We're seeing them, there's more conflict than there was before. We're seeing people have physical issues than more ever before. Mental health is on the rise. We know that. We know alcohol abuse has definitely spiked. So I think right now, more than ever, we need to pay attention to what was there truthfully before, but now it's become now we can't get away from it. It's there. We need to look at it.
Yeah, and really too, inside of what you're sharing, what you mentioned this earlier too, but to continue to expand on it is leaders having the ability to deal with themselves and to have that resilience to put that aside or be able to let things out in a safe environment and being vulnerable. Like, it's quite a bit of a dance to do it all. But, I would say that, how it can impact the culture, like, how one thing goes, everything goes. And so, if a leader shows up to a meeting full of frustration because of what they're dealing with, not even necessarily related to their current workday. I mean, I live in an area where they kept, my internet kept cutting out over and over again for like a week, right? And the frustration mounted. But if I were to bring that to a meeting, then because I'm sitting by myself in my office, there's no other outlet for frustration. So now all of a sudden I have an outlet for frustration, and I don't even know I'm consciously now taking it out. That's big to be able to start reckoning the awareness piece to see what, where to bring your vulnerability and your openness, but then, where it kind of shows up as this is my place to let it out in a negative way, and in a way that's going to impact the rest of the team. And then that will just keep rippling through. That will ripple through with their coworkers or their teams. And then it will ripple through to the client experience. And it will just ripple and ripple and ripple. And so, yeah, so I think it's, where you're starting to point is really great, because having those, strategies and tools to not only become aware of it, but then how to get it clear so I can bring, my full self to a meeting, and is really critical.
Well, and I think exactly that authenticity is really important. So I go to a team meeting and I realize everybody's got bags down to their knees because we've got, an audit going on, or we've got serious deadlines that are happening. Let's call out the elephant. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm bagged. You know, how are you doing? You know, how about we all maybe stand up and just stretch for a minute? Anybody got a good joke? You know, we need to kind of like take a look, pay attention to what's in front of us, because I think that, you know, my heart goes out to leaders right now. I mean, it genuinely goes out to leaders. They have been rapid fire, toilet seats up, toilet seats down, toilet seats up, I mean, I've worked with leaders that say, well, in the moment, this is the decision that I'm saying. That could change depending on what the government tells me. So I think that, you know, being that honest with people, like, I don't know, they're going to tell me soon. I'll let you know when I know. So I think that you certainly using humor in appropriate ways is good. But I think that right now to acknowledge how hard it's been on you. I mean, it's no different than the flight attendant that says, put the mask on your face first. You know, being dead, and I'm going to be that blunt, doesn't serve anybody. I can't lead if I'm dead, or if I'm burnt out, or if I'm, you know, like some of the leaders I'm working with, it's simple tweaks, which brings me into now room number 3, and that being, of course, your physically fit room, or my physically fit room. Right now, we have a serious sleep crisis on our hands, Kyle. Not you, though. Not you.
Yeah, we got clear of my beautiful sleep cycle. I can, yeah, we won't go into that.
That's awesome. But so for me, what we know here is that they've done research, and 42% of leaders who get 6 hours less and less sleep a night on a consistent basis are those 42% of them are literally creating havoc in some capacity on their teams, and they are disconnected from it. So I don't know about the rest of you. I was just saying this to Kyle. I didn't sleep so great last night. So I can literally be a wet noodle, or I can actually be a grizzly bear that's just coming out of the cave. Now, fortunately not with my clients. I'm able to have some self-regulation. So, but with my poor husband, it's like, you're breathing too heavy is kind of what it feels like. Would you stop breathing so loud? Like, seriously, do you have to make that much noise? That's how I was this morning. And I was like, okay. So when I was doing my fitness class this morning online, it's like, okay, you need an attitude adjustment in a big way. So for me, it was a matter of kind of, again, that self-regulation. You know what? I didn't show my best self here. I'm sorry. So I needed to definitely show up and suit up and say I was sorry to him. But so here's some things that I know you already know. This is no brainer, these sleep hygiene that we need to impress upon ourselves and be that role model. Honestly, Kyle, this is how important this is. I believe it needs to be a conversation at a team meeting about people's sleep. That's how important. People are getting into accidents. Conflict is happening. Discord is happening. Physical issues are happening. Mental health is being impacted in a massive, massive way with sleep deprivation. You know, people say, oh, well, I'm just an insomniac. That's just who I am. What? You know, like, please, let's not normalize this, right? So we know that the average time is really 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're someone who requires more, then I invite you to definitely take more, have more. What we know is consistency. Consistency is critical. You know, if anybody here has got a small child, or if you've ever been one, just teasing, of course you've been one, you know, typically there's a bit of a routine that happens, right? So if it's your PJs on first, you know, when you were a kid, and brush your teeth, and then it's maybe reading time, great, you know, time for some reading, maybe some cuddles, and then it's time for sleep. So what does the brain know? Oh, okay, so when this happens, I know we're winding down. You see, there are 5 stages of getting into a REM sleep. And so a lot of us either are just dipping our toe into the lake for the REM sleep, or we're not even getting there. So we know that having like a cave-like environment is important. It's got to be dark. It's got to be cool. Very critical. Now, here you go. No technology. Mm-hmm. I know, right? Some of you are going to go, what? What are you saying, Kate? I can't have my iPad or my cell phone in my bedroom or my TV. Well, if you want to have the greatest impact, and I work with one particular leader where she was getting feedback from her colleagues and from her superior that she was being a little overreactive at meetings. And when I was able to work with her one-on-one and help take away the layers of the onion, it became crystal clear that her sleep was seriously disrupted. She was exhausted all the time. She was empty, and she didn't have a lot to give people. And so hence why the overreaction was coming in. Now, this was not her normal way of being, but during the pandemic, it has had a huge impact. She's in a very high up position and has to make some very unpopular decisions within this organization. And so we were able to nail down, okay, so normally you doing this with your TV. Would you be willing to play and try for 7 days? So I got the rolling of the eyes like a true teenager. It was funny. And we laughed about that. And so she did it. And when she came back to me the next session, because again, as we know, coaching is all about accountability. She then said, oh my gosh, Kate, I had no idea that this would help me this much. So my invitation to you is literally any blue light. I'm talking even your, any kind of clock. I can't even literally have, I'm trying to make sure you can see it. I can't even have a clock in my bedroom because my eye goes to it. So I invite you, pick one of those things that I've mentioned. Either remove the TV, remove the iPad, don't do it all at once. It's like going to the gym and saying, okay, by Thursday next week, I'm going to lose 25 pounds, right? People will say, well, good luck with that. So just do one thing. Do one thing for 7 days and see if there's a difference. That's all I would recommend, because I think that right now we need to make those changes more than ever. It's really critical. It's going to help you in your well-being, your mental health, everything on so many levels. Physically, it's really important also that we talked about moving your body, which is really important. And I think the other thing, which is really equally as important, is that we have to have a release. And some of you might say, well, that's what I do with my bottle of wine every night. And I'm saying, I'm not necessarily telling you to stop doing what you're doing, but what I am going to say to you is, could you have somehow a physical release? We are like our body, we're primal people, right? The human condition is, I got to physically get out. So some simple things that I want to share with you. You've had a rough day, have a shower. Have a hot bath. Why? Because you need to physically get the energy of everybody, because you're eyeballing people all day long, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, about how we need to shift that up. But I think it's really important that we are physically getting out. Mother Nature has been waiting for us. Oh my goodness. I mean, she's out there and saying, come on, like, get out here. And we know that walking, particularly when you look at a distance, it's actually therapeutic for anybody experienced depression, anxiety. Because you see sort of, the bigger picture. So that's a big one. I want to mention about a little bit, because you talked about that, the Zoom fatigue. It is critical as leaders that we start loosening up the rules. Like, have that camera off. Let people, encourage them. Okay, so if you're sitting, why don't you go get a stool or something and put boxes or whatever, put your laptop or your computer on top of it. Why don't we all stand for this meeting? Let's do some stretching, to kind of move around and let's get clear about the meetings we're having, people. We're doing too many meetings. Like, I can't tell you the number of leaders that say, if I get invited to one more meeting. So I've actually had, during a coaching session, have somebody go into their calendar and go, okay, I want you to look and tell me, what is it? Where do you not need to be? And they go, well, and before you know it, there's at least 1 or 2 meetings that they literally, I say, okay, so let's just seize the moment. Why don't you now send emails off to those people and say, I'm not going to make it. And it's like, wow, so how did that feel? Well, it felt awesome. Okay, so do you think that the organization can handle you not being there? And then, of course, we giggle. You see, what tends to happen for us, Kyle, is that when I'm in a place of being an autopilot, I think I need to show up everywhere. I think that I need to be all things to everyone. And that is a myth, and it's a misconception, and we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Really important. The final one, because I do want to have Q&A, the final one is the spiritually fit room. I was very
just before, because we will have time for spiritually fit, because there's just a couple things you
going, oh shit, you never told me about that.
Well, it's like whatever. It's a cliffhanger. People have to get the book. But so a couple of things that you said there. I think it's really important to highlight both sides of that. So one is really, when you are having meetings or being with your team, making some time for that laughter and that fun, and then. I would think about, specific department, our commercial team at our office. Gita, our director, used to laugh through the building, and you could all hear it, and it would just really bring the team together. And I'm always being coached as well, and I was doing this exercise, and it was it was a laugh exercise, and you could just see how laughter causes laughter and just completely shifts a physical outlook and a complete outlook on life. So making sure you fit that in there. Well, then also respecting who needs to be in meetings. Do you need this meeting? does this meeting have to be half an hour, or could it be 5 minutes? Because people come into a meeting and they feel like they have to do all the normal things, like, hey, how is everyone doing? And all of that normal stuff. So, but being open and having conversations like, what structure is going to work for us now? And the other thing too, especially now that we're getting into spring, is seeing, especially if you have one-on-one meetings or small group meetings, see if you can transition them to, over Bluetooth headphones and have it as a walking meeting. So now you're all outside doing a walk time. Like, we used to walk for lunch and different things at the office, but now you could actually do that here while being apart, but still like chatting with each other. So, I'd say get creative. And if it doesn't go well, so be it. It's just something else to take on and something else that you can, work to improve on over time. So I just wanted to add those little pieces in there, and let's dive into the spirituality.
So the spiritual fit room is a big one. So if there's anybody on here that's atheist or whatever, that's totally cool. Spiritual is whatever it is for you. Spiritually fit room is basically the meaning of your life. Why are you here? So that's worth writing in that fourth room, your spiritually fit room, is that, why am I here? So it's really about the meaning of life. What we know is in other countries, third world countries, and other countries across the world, that, the people that are living to past 100 are people actually that have some element of purpose in their lives, whether they're doing volunteer work, whether they're continuing to work, whether they're caring for their great-grandchildren or their grandchildren, whatever. I think the reality is that we need to take that, again, that 10-second pause. If I just want you to get that 10-second pause is so important, is being able to take a look at, am I showing up and suiting up? Because you see, Kyle, the number one cause of stress, I'm trying to be mindful because I'm on a part, that's why you see me playing with my hands, because it's not normal for me to try to split it. So the number one cause of stress is forgetting to do things my way. See, they hired you because of your talent, not my talent, not somebody else's talent. So if someone said to me, okay, Kate, we want you to do some training with us, but you have to do it this way, right? And they're basically, but we don't want you to be creative. Well, creative is one of my, my strengths. It's one of the things I bring to the table, to the planet. And so now all of a sudden I have my hands tied behind my back. Whoa, talk about feeling stress. Right? So now I'm in a place, fortunately, because of my own business, and I just don't work with those people. But for me, it's a matter of making sure, and I realize some people don't have that luxury, but the key is, am I bringing, if sense of humor is one of the beautiful traits you bring to your role and who you are as a human being, then that needs to be infused. And I'll guarantee, when you're feeling burnout, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling exhausted, I would go to that. So I use that in the book as well. It's basically a leadership vision statement of who am I and how am I showing up. So it allows you to kind of use that as a springboard, that lighthouse, to say, right, of course, that's why I'm so stressed out, because I'm not, basically presenting my best self forward because of this. One of the things I encourage people to is to have a joy list. That's so important more than ever. Create a joy list. That could be a family activity, by the way. That could be a team activity where everybody just, okay, go. We got 30 minutes, go. And everybody writes the things that bring them joy, And so it may be, I was saying to the team yesterday, when our dog was alive, I loved it when I used to go in the house and hide on him. It was so silly, and my heart was going a mile a minute, and he would just be sniffing me out, and then the whole body was going. If anybody knows Airedales, the whole body goes, and it brought me such joy. Why? Because it brought out the little kid in me. You see, I think that we need to go back to the basics of being able to be that little child within, both in the workplace as well as outside the workplace, because it's that part of us where we get to play and laugh, as you've said. That's where creativity is born, right? So I'm going to be much more effective if there's space in the meeting, if there's space in, the planning to make that happen. So I'd love to put it out to people here as to, is there a room that's jumping out at you that you go, hey, Kate, I would really like some strategies on this particular thing. Again, please keep in mind that this is not being, as Kyle said, in case you jumped on later, that part is not being recorded at all. So if there is a particular room, whether you're a mentally fit room, your emotionally fit room, your physically fit room, or your spiritually fit room, where you're feeling like, hey, I'd love more clarity here, or I'd love a strategy, please let me know.
We'll just give people a moment here to type in. There's a couple of things. So as you type in, I will almost stop talking as soon as we get something in here. But we had Ontario Shores on a couple of months ago, and one of the things they talked about, because you brought up the wine, was a beautiful analogy about treating your mental health or wellness as a bank account. And so it's fine to take withdrawals, and it's fine, but it's really, make deposits. So something like wine is a withdrawal, but then, going for a walk out in nature is a deposit into your wellness account. So I just wanted to highlight that piece. And then the other thing too is that we actually have Durham Alzheimer's Society joining us next month for a webinar, because they're seeing a significant increase in cognitive decline. Speaking exactly to what you're talking about around lack of sleep, and so given what we do as a profession, it's not our be all end all responsibility, but it'd be great if we could really look out for our clients to make sure they're safe behind the wheel, but also look out for our team, just look out for everybody, that we're really being present to that too. So that webinar is I don't have the exact date fixed yet, but you'll obviously all be invited out to that one. But that's you're right that it is a bigger issue than I think we're currently paying attention to right now. And I did see a couple people typing. Oh, here we go. So room 1 and 2, just a quick rehash. And okay. Okay, so that's a broad stroke there. A quick rehash on 1 and 2. I don't know if you could somehow summarize that in a minute.
Probably not. What I would probably say to that person is there a particular room that's screaming at you? So I want you to imagine going into an empty house, and you're going into each of the room, and sometimes we're actually picking things up in that room to see whether or not, when was the last time I used this? Does this serve me? Do I need to send it out? Do I need to let it go? Or is there some things missing here? So I just invite you. So unfortunately, to give that recap might be a bit tricky because there was a lot of information. I'm sorry you couldn't hear that. This isn't a recording, so I would maybe just encourage you in that case. Thank you for asking. But in all fairness to those for just this brief Q&A. So if you'll notice what I did right there, right? So this is important as a leader. This is one of the things that I'm finding more and more that leaders are struggling with, is being able to set healthy boundaries, but doing it with kindness, right? So I think that's the other part. So right on. Thank you for asking for what you needed. And I needed to take a look at the larger group and sort of, okay, we've got a couple minutes for Q&A right now, so I want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody's comments. So it's important that we say no, and this is how you can get that information by the recording. So that's part of what's happening, I'm finding, with leaders, is they're saying yes, 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 and then they're overtaxed and overwhelmed and they're depleted. So part of it is we got to, again, take a look at, everybody knows the 80-20 rule. What's my 20%? What's the 20% of activity that I need to be doing to get the 80% results? So more than ever, we need to conserve our energy, right? We need to conserve our energy more than ever. So I think that would be a big one. So I'm sorry to the person that you've requested that.
Well, it's good. There's a couple of other pieces that came in here that I'd like to see if we can address. So one, I think, so there's a couple of pieces around room 2 and the mental well-being or the emotional well-being. Is they kind of blend into each other. I guess the question is, with the I guess how do you start? I guess, what do you do first? If the emotional fit room, right? So I imagine in a scenario where somebody is, you have your normal flow of emotions through the day. Like, oh, this meeting didn't go as well as I thought it would. But, you experience some sort of remorse or guilt or something, like some internal conversation about it. But then if that really takes you down, and then you go into another meeting and now you're like fired up and you're angry. And you're like just really on a roller coaster of emotion instead of, managing a flow of emotion. I guess with this room 2, there's a bit of trickiness to see what should you be looking for to recognize there's some problem in room 2.
Okay, so again, it's the 10-second pause. This is a great example. So it's a 10-second pause. So a lot of us, unfortunately, if we're looking at our calendar, it's bing, 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 bing. People say, okay, but I have to do that. Well, my invitation to you is to say, I don't know. Because when you take a day off or when you go on vacation, somehow they manage. So I think part of it is in our thinking. And I know for me, no question, my knickers get way too tight when I'm on that treadmill and I'm not giving myself space between meetings. The example you gave there, Kyle, is a great one. So if I'm feeling a little off, like what happened there? So I need to take that 10-second pause and kind of go, okay, so what's going on, and build it into my calendar that there is 10-minute breaks in between. Maybe I need to just go step outside for a while and go, so what got set off in me? That's interesting. I'm really feeling sad after that conversation, or I'm feeling really angry. What got set off in me, right? And I'm sure this doesn't happen to any of you, but let me give you an example. When I'm tired, I can create this story that doesn't exist. Ever happen? So, so what happens is that, you know, you're tired and that person didn't get back to you, or they looked a certain way at you in the meeting or during the Zoom, or they didn't respond. Well, that's it. They think I'm incompetent. There we go. Or it might be, I knew they liked them better. I knew it. Or see, they don't even get me. So then what happens is this Hollywood story starts up. And I always joke and say, this could be sold to Hollywood and serious money. I could be making off of it, because they go, what? You created what in your head, this plot? So it's a plot. I need to tell you that coming out of the gate. So part of it is literally taking that 10-second pause and just saying, how am I feeling? What's up right now? What's triggering me? Well, you know, when he said that, I realized that this has brought me back to this place. Or again, so some people might write about it. Somebody might do a sounding board. Like I know, Kyle, your wife's working from home. Some other people may be working from home. So that safe person, which may not be your spouse, by the way, I realize that for some, but whoever that is, do that reality check. Because if you don't get an opportunity to address that, it will turn into a rodeo show. I can just tell you from experience. So part of it is taking the 10-second pause, checking in, how am I feeling? And, you know, and it may be, I need to address this later today, or I need to address it at lunchtime, or when I take a walk, I'm going to just kind of try to process that. So that's where we all need that support person that we can do the reality check with. Sometimes I call, a good friend of mine who's a former Buddhist monk. He's written a book called A Beautiful Mind, which is beautiful, beautiful medicine. Sorry. And so he talks to the wise counselor. So visualizing a chair in front of you, or physically having a chair in front of you, you've just now poured into that person all the things that you've just said. And that wise person, that good friend of yours, or whoever you trust, is now mirroring back. And they're saying, okay, so I wonder if. So I think that the thing is, we do not need to do this journey alone. And I think that leadership, truthfully, has become a solo sport. And we need to change that. We need to make sure that we're getting support from all sides, because you deserve it. You're worthy of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we are just over time, and I'll ask for permission. Would you have about 3 to 5 minutes more time to answer a couple of remaining questions?
I'm happy.
And so feel free to stick here to ask any remaining questions you have. I'm looking at the chat, not the camera. But I'll just share this too quickly. At one point I turned and I have a garbage can behind me. I think if I lean one way or the other, I can't even now show you. but instantly the story just goes in the head like, there's something wrong here now, and it created this whole world. And who knows, maybe everybody saw my garbage can and everybody thought I was that I'm a mess or something, right? But maybe no one did. And it was all made up, the whole thing. Of course, people need a garbage can. So but it's amazing in that way. And so one of the big challenges that I know is faced is that, you know, leaders also deal with being really empathetic or compassionate. So being concerned about their own teams that are also potentially at least being overwhelmed, or we think they're overwhelmed, right? And so how can you go to delegate to people that you already, either whether you know or assume they're overwhelmed?
Right. So it's a good question. So first and foremost, it starts with you and ends with you. So we have to ask ourselves, and that's where you're writing down, am I a power of example, or am I a warning? So when I work with some leaders and I hear how they push and they push and they push, and they're working, like 18-hour days and 16-hour days and 14-hour days, getting that email at 3 a.m., I'm stressed out, right? Now, I'm not talking about, when we've got families at home, and so people are maybe working at night when the chicklins are sleeping, or those kinds of things. I'm talking about when we are on all the time, because then we don't realize that we are rapid fire then treating others. Because I'm a firm believer that how I treat myself is in fact mirrored in all my relationships. So if I'm treating myself like a pack mule, then guess what? I don't mean to, but now, and I've had to catch myself, I'm like, my husband took an early retirement, and oh my gosh, there's times I'm saying stuff to him and I'm thinking, where is this drill sergeant coming from? And again, I have to take that 10-second pause and going, whoa, let's just take a step back. Sorry, what was the question?
well, that next layer down, right? So the next layer down is now you've worked on. You're like, okay, I have a delegate list now,
Right.
but I don't want to delegate to because my team's overwhelmed.
Right. So again, this is where the mind map comes in. Great question. So part of it is in the mind map. Go back to the original, the Monday morning mind map. So I'm looking there and saying, okay, so what is my number one priority? And if that number one priority that you're saying to your lead or one of your leaders or one of your team people, and they're stressed out, part of it is we need to say, I need you to do this, but let's figure out what we can take away from you. What can we take away from you? That's the conversation that leaders are not having consistently with their teams. You're right. So I'm working with people in coaching capacities and they're saying, oh my gosh, so she wants me to go to one more committee. She wants me to attend one more thing, or he wants me to do this, but I'm just tapped out. So, okay, so that conversation needs to happen so this is really important to me, Kyle, that you do this. I'm not naive here. I know you're running on empty. Let's take a look at what we need to maybe take away from so that you're able to then show up and do that. So it's, again, the conversation of that giving and the taking, right? Because that's the reality here. We have to, and this is true. Some of the people that we're delegating to are already maxed, and I am getting leaders that are saying it's just better for me to do it. And what I say to people is, at what expense? So I get it. There's times, absolutely. We know that the CEO that shows up and and suits up right on the front lines, that has a huge impact on their team. However, if that's happening all the time, then we're actually enabling. And so what we're not doing is we're not talking about the reality of the true time management here. What is our number one priority? What is it that we need to focus in on right now? Some of the leaders I work with, they'll say to me, Kate, do you think that, I'm such I like to be sort of ahead of the game with our organization and, taking advantage of all that stuff. Do you think maybe what I'm asking of them is too much? And my answer is usually, yep, absolutely it is. Because right now, people are trying to just keep their head above water. They've got so many situations that they're dealing with, the disruptions at home. I mean, we've got serious family of squirrels that are showing up everywhere. And so, being on Zoom so much is really causing us to have a very minimal attention span. So we've got to make it easier on them. So simple things like we talked about, taking off the camera, giving people that luxury of doing that. So what if they're wiping their counter? As long as they're engaging with me and they can be present with me, that's really important that we have that flexibility. But it is a reality. You're right. The delegating. If I'm delegating to other people, their buckets are empty. How do I then deal? We need to take some things away. We need to give them permission to say, okay, this is really important for me because the ministry or whoever the higher ups are saying this needs to happen. So. And I need you to do that. And so this is what I want to do. I want to basically negotiate with you. What is it that can, not so much that it's negotiating about them doing it, but the fact is, what can we take away off of your plate so that you're not feeling, so taxed.
Great. And so just to one of the conversations we discovered as an organization is, and I can, use the analogy of spring cleaning. We naturally take on more stuff, pile on more things over time. And then we do a spring clean to see what needs to be removed. And oftentimes, we have lots of ideas, lots of good ideas. So it's a lot easier to keep adding new things and starting new projects, starting new activities. But we don't often have a stop conversation. So we've really discovered this stop, start, keep conversation and, applying it all over the place. To see what we actually could stop doing because it's no longer fulfilling anything. And that's one of the tactics. There was a question around daily activities for being overwhelmed. That's one thing. The other one that I also use is the Covey quadrants, which I'm sure you know about. If you don't know about it, just take a look at them. But oftentimes, if we're moving towards overwhelmed, what we'll often do is end up operating in quadrant 3 and 4, which only feeds more of overwhelm. And so when you can actually write down, similar to the mind map, what are these wasted activities that have no purpose, you could actually then work on the resilience to just stop doing them. And is there anything that you want to say to wrap up? Because we are going to wrap this puppy up. We are. It's great.
I guess the thing I want to say is, I just want to say that to anybody who has shown up for themselves today. Good for you, because you see, it starts with you and ends with you. Self-compassion for some it's a learned behavior. Maybe they didn't have a role model that demonstrated that. Maybe there was somebody who always said more. B+, what happened? Why not an A? I work with PhDs, all sorts of people, and they're still dealing with that inner critic, that perfectionist. So my invitation to you is, create space in your day for you. Don't wait and count the sleeps till your week vacation. Don't count the sleeps till your mental health day. It's really important that every day you are creating some strategy. So my invitation to you is, back to the 100% responsibility for our lives and our actions and our happiness and our mental health. What's one thing? Pick one thing from what I've shared on this buffet today and just say, if I only took 10%, let's just say 10% responsibility in that one room, whether it's my mentally fit room, whether it's my emotionally fit room, my physically fit room, my spiritually, please do it. Do it for the next 21 days. Why? Because you see, confidence is about building up that muscle. Hence why the subtitle of my book, The Powerhouse in You, How to Lead with Greater Resilience, Courage, and Confidence. Our confidence is being hit heavy right now. And so it's important that you invest in you, not just the typical leadership development. Yes, it's good to know critical thinking. Yes, it's good to know all these things. But the truth is, if you are not taking time out to address how you're feeling and what's getting triggered in you, I'm afraid it's going to get worse. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it will get better when you actually invest in yourself in a way that allows you to be real and say, yeah, this sucks right now. I'm having a tough time. I'm experiencing anxiety. I'm experiencing whatever. Having that safe place to go to let your hair down is critical. Sorry for the bald people and bald gentlemen, if there's any bald gentlemen here, because my brother's bald. So thank you so much for willing to play. If anybody has any questions or they want to have a further conversation, feel free to reach out to me. It's www.powerfuljourney.com. My book, if you decide you want to have a personalized book, a lot of organizations right now are actually purchasing my book for their teams as a way of paying witness to them and giving them some concrete strategies to support them with resiliency. So I'm open to any kind of discovery call if I can support you, one-on-one coaching, whatever that might be.
Yeah, and if nothing else, you get to have a super fun, engaging conversation with a fantastic human being. So thank you, Kate, for being with us today. And it was a real pleasure. And totally fun to have this really off-the-cuff conversation with you. I really enjoyed it, and I can tell other people did too. So thanks for your service and for being who you are.
You bet. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
Bye.